Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and we really mean it. We want to thank all of you for taking some time out of your day, whatever time it is, to join us. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at IIBA. I am joined by a fantastic panel of not just women, but business analysis professionals, trainers, speakers, authors. We got a lot of credentials, a lot of credibility on this panel today, and we want to share stories, advice, and just what it means to be a woman in technology with you today. We're going to get to that in just a moment. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping. You guys are doing a fantastic job in chat. We love it when you talk with us and also when you talk with each other, so keep using chat for that. We are going to take some questions. I don't see the questions box, but I think we have Q&A. If not, it's cool. We'll figure out how to take your questions. We have, oh, there it is. We've got the reactions turned on, and I can see some of you have already found it, but all of our panelists can see the reactions today, and it's such a great way to let them know that you're hearing them and that you're really appreciating what they're saying. So please use those as well. We are recording today's session. You will get the link to that in about 24 hours after today's webinar. And I feel like that's the main stuff that I need to tell you. If I think of anything else, I'll get back in touch. All right, let me tell you who we have on the panel today. We have got Priyanka Agarwal. She is with TransLink. She's a senior lead. I also think you're a professor. You also do some teaching at a
That's right.
university. That might come up today. I know you kind of weave in business analysis and leadership topics in your talks. Some of you may know Deirdre Aaron. I know Deirdre because I actually took some certification prep through her, and it gave me an opportunity to talk with her. She's a director at Agra Insights. Next up, we have Bindu Chanavarappa, who is, you've probably seen her speaking about cybersecurity, which is near and dear to her heart. She's also an author of a book that was published not that long ago on cybersecurity. So thanks for joining us today. And then, of course, Angela Wick. Maybe you've seen her on LinkedIn Learning. Maybe you've seen her doing some talking through BA Cube. She's an author, speaker. Look, I was just talking about her book today, Future Proof. So we're happy to have Angela as well. All right. Well, let's get this party started, as they say. So again, we are going to cover some topics. This is more of an informal kind of a Q&A style panel discussion today. We want to learn from women in technology, some of their struggles, some of the things that they've seen across their career. So let's just start kind of with a good foundation question. And Angela, I'm going to ask you this question first. Share a little bit about your journey into business analysis, and you can talk about challenges that you have faced, maybe how you overcame them.
Sure. Well, I started my career in the 90s, mid to late 90s, and I had a business degree from university, but the job I got was in tech. And so I was a very non-technical person that got a job in tech. And it was very male-dominated field, very masculine, energy dominated. And I wasn't technical. I struggled with the expectation. I felt that a lot of people felt I should be. Why am I on the team? And overall, I was supported by a lot of leaders in my non-technical view of things, and I did well with that. They had to constantly remind me that that's what they wanted on the team. But I also got some pushback from some folks that were like more at my level or a little bit above me in the male dominated space. Like, why aren't I technical? I don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. Or I felt that anyway, maybe real or perceived, I'm not sure. Um, but that pushback just kind of made me want to learn more about it. So I kind of leaned in and tried to learn as much as I can about tech. But really, the win was when I figured out how to not be technical like the guys and like the pressure I felt from them, but how to leverage that knowledge in my non-technical view and work. And so finding that balance was probably a big turning point for me. And I'm not sure there was one point in time when it happened, right? And maybe I see it more clearly looking back than I did at the time. But the other kind of funny things I remember in my early years, especially, was like the pressure to dress different. Like, okay, in tech in the 90s, I wore khakis and a button-down shirt every day. It, I, it took me a long time to feel comfortable, like dressing and being feminine. Like, I felt like I had to fit in with the guys. And I still to this day have conflicting thoughts about that because like fitting in is big. I had to like learn about football and sports to kind of like fit in with small talk, right? And in some ways, I don't regret that either. Um, but it took me a long time to embrace the difference between feminine energy and masculine energy and really figure out, where that place is. Um,
Mm.
but I also remember struggling with leadership styles and watching various leadership styles at play and having really mixed feelings about dominant leadership styles versus empathetic and where assertiveness played in and just kind of looking at that like, wait, what is this one-upping stuff and this brute force or this dancing around things? So I really started looking to mentors, women and men, that could teach an assertive yet empathetic way of leading and insert humor, empathy, compassion while being assertive to their work. And that's where I just started focusing on is like, okay, where can I learn the style that I want to authentically be? And it's never ending. I haven't finished learning yet.
I think that's the main thing, right? I think as women in this space, we are constantly having to learn, watch, adapt. Um, Deirdre, you're the next person that I see in my view. Why don't you talk a little bit about your journey into business analysis?
I got thrown in. So they really looked at to say, well, what are you interested in? And can you do this Excel spreadsheet? And I was like, what? Um, so so I said yes. And so they said, okay, well, if you can do an Excel spreadsheet, then we're going to teach you how to do business analysis. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll just give it a go. And so it really was. It was just something because they had this big project. I was working with utilities. They were working a massive, massive project. But they really wanted to capture the requirements. And I had never worked in that space before, but I thought, you know what? Give it a go and see what happens. So, yes, that was what happened with me. I ended up starting with a spreadsheet and next minute having an entire career. So,
Right?
um,
Creating your own academy.
but this is it. So, so you just never really know how you're going to get uh, into business. And I suppose um, from a technical point of view, there's some really cool tools that if you just learn them and try them out and just play with them, it it can really accelerate your career. And of course, I've spent time learning after doing, which has been quite an interesting journey. So even now, when I train from that doing place. How do you do things? Because there's a level of practicality that's needed, but I think just being bold and going, yeah, I'll try. I'll put my hand up and see what happens. Mm.
Mm. All right. Bindu, you're next in my view. Tell us about your journey.
Thank you, Susan. I think mine, although I started late 90s, like what Angela was saying, it was quite different because I come from a very technical background. So when I started my career, my title was systems analyst developer. And although even when I was studying, I think we were just a handful of girls and the rest were boys. Somehow, I think it's just my personal journey. Even when I was growing up as a very little girl, somehow I ended up playing with boys more than actually girls. So, which means there was a comfort factor for me. I didn't feel out of place because I started off very young, and fortunately as well, I didn't have that biases I had to deal at home, of course, outside. So I think somewhere that gave me a kind of a comfortable space, or even to a space where I could work with these things. And again, as I was studying, I chose computer science because, for one, somehow I really started loving it because it was very new thing in the late 90s. Just even owning a computer was a big deal. So because of that, and also I come from a city in India, Bangalore, which is the IT hub, still the IT hub. So IT was the happening thing. So I spent a lot of time, which eventually turned out to be that I was very good at what I was doing. So inevitably, people or men had to work with me. So somehow I think that was a kind of a thing. And moreover, somehow, again, the nature in me is when I'm at a work or a job, I'm so focused, I just kind of ignore or, not consciously, but unconsciously, I try to, get out of those things. So somehow that has helped. Having said that, not that, they were kind of challenges or whatever, but mostly it was the foundation what I had got. And of course, at the crossroads when I had to choose what career path, because as you grow into, from a developer to senior developer and um, business analyst specifically, or a project manager, and I look back at the crossroads, I think my heart was actually at the analysis part, where you kind of get into the details. And it was straight away for me, that is what I had to do. And since then, I think it's been nearly 2 decades. I haven't looked back, still
Yeah.
going and still
It's
learning.
it's funny that you mentioned having spent a lot of time with boys. My dad, who was a television sportscaster, always wanted me to play sports, and there were no girls' teams. And so I always had to play on the boys' teams. And I do feel like he was he was really helping me work in technology even before he knew that could be a thing. So good job, Dad. Priyanka, how about your story?
Yeah, so my story's been interesting as well. I started off in technology. Didn't really choose it, to be frank, but I think it was a good decision. My dad sort of directed me into it. It was an up and coming field at that time. I'm not going to reveal my age by telling you when.
We won't tell.
I know there's like, I think 1,000 people on here, but I'm sure you know my age regardless. Jokes apart.
29. She's 29, as are all of us.
Jokes apart, I really, when I took my IT degree, both my bachelor's and my master's from Canada, I came across a course called Software Engineering, and I read the book by Carl Wiegers, and that day I knew what I was destined for and what I was going for, and I left no stone unturned. And I continue to make my efforts in the field of business analysis, and I'll talk more about it in the rest of the podcast. But talking about my journey as a woman, I think biological factors had a role to play. So, for example, when I became a mom, which was the best part and is the best part of my life, but it did mean that I had to leave a project in the middle. And when I came back, it had been handed over to someone else. And that totally makes sense from a business perspective. But from my own career perspective, I felt like I had missed something. And it was totally worth missing because my son's my joy. But what I'm trying to say here is that you can't necessarily overcome everything. But what you can do is you can circumvent that. So during my mat leave, I had a couple of hours when my son would be sleeping. I took on a business analysis course and I started learning. This was way long back. And then I used my energy and my skills in a different way to continue to advance my career. And over the years, I've had some social reasons why there have been obstacles. And I have to say, though, that men have played a big supportive role in my life. Uh, and I found great mentors in men. So, not trying to be gender biased here, but I have also met men who are very supportive. And along the way, I've realized that circumventing situations as opposed to overcoming them might be a good way to overcome some of the barriers as a woman in business analysis, or for that matter, any profession. So I started to apply my business analysis skills on volunteer projects, and leadership skills were demonstrated thereof. I also started to coach students on the side, and I got a lot of fulfillment from that. And that helped me grow further in my career. And I see that my career is a journey, so I'm continuing to evolve and learn. But those are some of my insights and findings during the time that I've been in this profession.
Just an observation before I move on to the next question. Something I've noticed in all of your journeys is how profoundly you were impacted by getting started and realizing that there were some pieces that were missing and pieces that could be done better to help bring along the next generation, and that all of you have contributed in that way to the next generation of business analysis professionals. Um, so I think that's maybe the part of the stories that maybe even you didn't think about, but clearly this journey has been incredibly impactful in your own lives. So Priyanka, this next question is for you because you touched on leadership. Um, and that being an important part of not just what you think about, but also what you talk about. So, what does authentic leadership mean to you, and how can women embody that? Um, and empathy, because I think what I've heard from you guys too is balancing the hard skills of being the leader also with this idea to have empathy for others. Um, so, tell me about that.
So, Susan, there's no unequivocal definition of authentic leadership. There's been a lot of research that has happened, but there's still a lot to go. And I think it's an emerging area. So my definition of authentic leadership may be different than yours or someone else's, but I'll tell you what my definition of authentic leadership is. Authentic leadership to me is three things. It's empathy, it's integrity, and it's transparency. Now, in this era of artificial intelligence, I'm not going to get into too much detail, but authenticity is going to be a critical instrument for social change. And I don't mean this in a bad way, I mean this in a good way. I think with all the things artificial that are happening, authentic leadership is here to stay. So, authentic leadership is different than traditional leadership in the way that leadership is about agendas and goals, about empowering people, making sure people work together. It's driven by that goal, though. However, authentic leadership is driven by an intrinsic value system. It's driven by a purpose. It's much higher. I'm not saying that authentic leaders don't try to achieve an end or a goal. They do, but their motivation is an underlying moral compass or a principle that they live by. So to give you an example, and because it's International Women's Day, Jacinda Ardern, the previous Prime Minister of New Zealand, in my view, demonstrated authentic leadership. She didn't hold back when it came to emotion. She did show her emotion. She was transparent. She was still working towards a common goal, which was to to prevent the spread of COVID. But at the same time, her personality came forth. She showed who she is, and she was self-aware. She knew when to step back. She had her boundaries. She said, okay, I don't have anything more to give. My tank is full, and she stepped down. And so a key component of authentic leadership is also knowing yourself, knowing when to stop. From my experience, I've seen that a lot of people think that authentic leaders, because they have high empathy, they're pushovers. And that's actually very not true. That is, in fact, a big misconception. They have boundaries, but they prefer to choose to first be empathetic and, be reasonable within bounds. So I think authentic leadership is also about self-awareness. So coming,
Mm.
so coming to the second part of your question about embodying authentic leadership, the way to do that is to ask yourself, what is my vision in life? What is my mission in life? What are my principles? Who am I? When I leave this world, and you may think this is cliched, but it's actually, I'll talk more about this later as well. Ask yourself, when I'm gone, who do I want to be known as? What's my legacy? And all these questions are going to bring forth your authenticity. And that authenticity is going to help you shine and set you apart, make you unique, because empathy is on the decline. And there's been research on this topic. Oxford University in 2013 said only 2% of people are empaths. Can you believe that? And then in
Sadly,
20,
yes.
yeah, 2019, there was another article by Psychology Today, and they said that empathy is a deficit in today's world. And it's 2025. I was hoping I would have better news, but that's not the case. So, empathy and authentic leadership is a driver for social change, and is the only accelerator for humankind in the age of AI. And I'll stop there. But I strongly believe in this topic, and I can go on forever.
Yeah, Bintu, this is reminding me, you and I had a conversation on a podcast actually about reflection. So kind of segueing into a little bit about self-awareness. What does authentic leadership mean to you?
Thank you, Susan. I think the word authenticity itself for me is taking us inside or back to truly who we are as human beings, not the human doings that we have become. So for decades, and I also love the point that Priyanka was sharing, the stats and everything. And I feel sometimes, I just laugh at it because today, as humans, we need statistics to actually tell us more about us rather than we ourselves knowing. Again, touching upon the power of reflection is just trying to understand who we truly are is actually more, we know who we are, but we wait for somebody else, some statistics to tell us. And that's what, the irony of today's society is. So, for good or bad, I think for decades, leadership was, again, across industries and societies, has been kind of male energy oriented, marked by hierarchy, competition, more emphasis on power and control, and very less space for human emotions. I mean, I still remember many, many years back, I was kind of told that we need to keep our emotions outside before we enter the workplace. So, but I think today the world has kind of evolved where we need more of a balanced, not the other end, but a more balanced, where, as Priyanka was highlighting, empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, and the courage to actually embrace vulnerability. And I feel that it is just not leading by the head, which we did for decades. It is also involving the head and the heart. And that's how we can bring that balance, recognizing the strength in that connection and prioritizing human well-being, because I think that's the only way we can go forward today as humanity and take it in the right direction.
Yeah. I'm looking at Deirdre and Angela. Do you guys want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I wanna echo and add on to what they're saying and go really deep for a moment. I think a pivotal point in this empathy and assertiveness equation is realizing our own self-awareness, which these guys have already mentioned, of when we're using emotion for the sake of others in the group or for the sake of ourselves. So when we say we can get emotional, what does that really mean? Does that mean I can spout out any emotion and show any emotion I'm feeling? Maybe. But are we really thinking about what does this group I'm communicating to need right now? And I find myself trying to catch myself thinking in the moment, am I projecting my feeling onto the group because I'm feeling this and I want to be validated and heard? Or am I telling a story and projecting feeling to give comfort to the group because I really think they are also experiencing this? Or what else might they be experiencing and feeling? Like the right. So I think that that's something that I early in my career, I can't say I understood that concept. But
Yeah. That's kind of an advanced way of thinking about it. I agree. Also, I think a little bit of that is just lived experience, right? That's where you get some of that perspective. Deirdre, were you going to
Yeah.
add something to that as well?
Yeah. So when we spoke in podcast, you said bring yourself. So bring your unique self into the room. And I really resonate with that. I think that and the unique self of who you are, the authentic self of who you are, means that you might not be ticking the boxes people might expect from a leader. And that's okay too. So if you're someone who's a super geek and likes to do things, that is who you are. And that's what authenticity means. It doesn't mean you have to read whatever's in the latest book to say, this is how you lead. Because sometimes I look at some of the leadership and I look at what people are saying, and, these are great authors or whatever it might be. but it doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't relate to who I am and what I need to do to help others. And so I think bring yourself, your true self into that bucket is far more what you should be focusing on than trying to follow a formula. And there's some things that do work, but there's mostly what will work is you being you and you doing the things you like to do. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I clearly I agree with that. So, all right. Well, listen, I'm looking over at our chat, and this part of the conversation seems to um, really resonate with this audience. All right.
I
So
just wanted
let's,
to add a one quick thing that
yeah,
as women, we need to embody authentic leadership by making sure that we're nurturing the future generation to be authentic. By we're teaching the right values
yes.
and modeling the right things to the future coming generations. As women, we have a role to play there as well.
Representation really matters to each generation. Because for us, we were talking before we started today, we were talking about not having a lot of women in our workspaces, to know what would leadership look like? What would business analysis look like? We are that first generation of women who then can pay it forward. I think that is a fantastic point. So yeah, thank you for that, Priyanka. So our next question is on networking, I think. Are we talking? Yes. And this one is going to Bindu. So we're talking about how can women in business analysis leverage networks and mentorship and community? That's already come up a little bit in this, but talk about why networking and community is important for you and for other women.
Thanks, Susan. I think you've chosen the right person for the right question. Been with the community for a significant amount of time now. Yes, we all know that the sole reason the communities or the networks exist is to support their member base or those who are part of that community. And I believe that the true impact requires just not being part of any community, but also knowing how to use it effectively. So in my experience as a participant also and as a mentor, it comes down to 3 key elements, or 3 C's as I call. And this has helped me, and also it has helped many people whom I have mentored as well. So the first C is clarity. We just heard the stories here. Business analysis isn't a linear career pathway. Most of us have interesting stories, how we landed up in this profession. Some entirely come from a completely different career, and those who are here, we create a kind of a niche for them. And some people will transition into leadership from here. So the beauty of our profession is the flexibility. And wherever there's flexibility, there's always a challenge to choose where you want to go. And because we don't have a clear set defined path here, many times, when we are having conversations, often I'm asked this question: how do I advance in my career? And the truth is, nobody else can answer this question other than yourself. So a network can only be valuable if you have the clarity on what exactly you're seeking. It could be mentorship, it could be the skill building or the career direction, doesn't matter what it is, but having that clear goal of what we need from the community so that you can engage with the right people. So that's clarity for me. And the second C is courage. We know that growth doesn't happen in a comfortable space. We always have to push that boundary and go into those uncomfortable spaces, whether it is even voicing our own ambitions or learning a new skill, or even acknowledging that there's a challenge and I have to go beyond that. So, which means every step forward demands that courage. And fortunately or unfortunately, we live in a society where the vulnerabilities is often masked. It could be, behind those filtered photographs or those accolades or awards or achievements, where all the painstakingly long nights, silent struggles, long working hours, dealing with rejections is never acknowledged. But the reality is every leader, every expert, every influencer, everybody we look up to have faced kind of failures, doubts, uncertainty. They have been vulnerable at any given point, but the only difference is they chose to act on their discomfort or the challenges that they had, and they were ready to seek help. So again, the community can support you when you make that courage to ask for help. And final C is commitment. Commitment is, more than receiving the help that we get from the community. It is all about acting upon the advice or the suggestions that we get. Too often, and even I'm guilty of it, when we get the advice, but we hesitate to implement it, again, because we are going through our own comfort zones. And we know that anything for a change or a progress, we need that grit and persistence and, the willingness to make sure that we see it through till the end, even when there are challenges, because we know that nothing is as simple or as straightforward as we think. So again, if we are receiving a support from the community, our commitment is to kind of take that support and turn it into action. So commitment also has another aspect here, which is again about contributing back to the community. So those people who have actually kind of achieved a success for themselves or are in an influencing position must kind of contribute back to the community, whether it could be mentoring other people or creating those safe spaces for discussions. I mean, this panel is again a fantastic opportunity. And I know a few other forums, one, the BBC Women in Tech, and a few other panel discussions in various conferences. But I think these are all just a starting point. We need to have a sustained space so that these conversations can continue to happen and there's a continuous support that's available. And we all know and agree that the BA community is incredibly supportive, not just for women, but for everybody. And in my experience, having these three things, the clarity, the courage, and commitment, we can just not be part of the community, but we can actually, be those active change makers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things that personally was always a bit overwhelming was thinking about having to build a community, but something that you've just said is really you can connect into a community like Women in Tech, like being part of IIBA, like attending webinars. You can connect into a community and surround yourself with people that can help you in your growth and development. So I'm taking a look. Who would like to add to this?
I'd like
I'll
to.
add
Deirdre.
something.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
So we often talk about introversion and
Mm-hmm.
extroversion. And again, Susan, when we spoke, we both said, we're introverts, and introversion is quite difficult when you want to go, work in communities and do all of these group events. And so my advice would be for people to just do it again. Just go and join something. IIBA has heaps of things that you can do. You can work with communities, you can get to know people, and it's uncomfortable and it will be uncomfortable for the rest of your life. It's never going to go away. And I say that confidently because I went to new school in year 2 when I was a child, and I stood there like a really, out of place, out of sorts person. And and this little girl came up to me and held my hand, and it actually kind of was really an emotional experience. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she became my sister. Literally, my parents then met and they got married. And
Oh,
that was,
so
yes,
really
yes,
she became your
she
sister.
really became my sister. And so the thing is, she's also quite introverted, but she just saw the opportunity and took the time and the moment to actually connect. So I think, getting getting people and helping other people who are in the same situation as you is really, you just got to do it, and you got to put yourself out there, and it's really uncomfortable. But once you do that, you end up with good things.
Yeah. Bindu's quote, growth doesn't happen in a comfortable space. I saw Jordan saying that's a really good reminder. Priyanka,
Yeah.
were you going to add something?
Yeah, it was similar to what Deirdre said, but I'll take a different stance at it. I'll be more practical. I'll give some practical thoughts that I have, I think, and I was not paid to say this. Women in business analysis can effectively leverage networks, mentorship, and community by becoming an IIBA member.
High
So
five.
I was not paid to say this, but seriously, I have found in my own experience that IIBA exposes you to so many new people, so many new opportunities, so much learning happens. And if you, for whatever reason, think you want to do something other than business analysis, think about public speaking, join a Toastmasters club, go into a dance class, and you may be there for fun, for dancing, but the kind of people that you meet there, you could learn something from them, and you could open up. You could learn to shed your inhibitions and be out there. I am not a dancer at all, but I took one class and I felt silly, and that just made me comfortable because I overcame my fears. And Susan, I can certainly take lessons from you because I remember the gap analysis dance from BBC.
That- yes, we all know the BA boogie. Thanks.
Yeah, but
Thanks.
to my point, just you get out there, do something new, something fun, become a member of an organization or institution, and just like my other Bindu and Deirdre, my peers said, volunteer and try to give back to the community.
Yeah. Angela, I'll let you have the final word on this one.
Oh gosh, I'm just sitting here listening to all this wonderful stuff and thinking community mentoring coaching is all about helping you find your own answer through the stories of others. And
Yeah.
so make sure that those of you out there that are thinking, I really want a mentor, don't think about who exactly should I ask to be my mentor and then ask them to solve the world for you. Think about how can I build community where I'm hearing stories and can determine my own path.
And I'll add to that because I know I've talked with people about mentoring and they think about themselves as being on the receiving end of that. But when you mentor, to your point, you don't have to have all of the answers. One, two, you don't even have to be an expert because you are going to be getting as much out of the learning as the person that you're working with. So it really is an opportunity to learn on both sides of that. Um, and I think that is just such a great way to be leaders and to represent and to be, to pay forward to other women what's possible in this space. Let's see. All
Susan,
right.
sorry, before we go forward, there's a question, I
Yeah.
guess, on this. What the question is, what would you advise them to focus on their first 90 days? So,
Mm.
like as I said, it is not something for somebody else to answer. So, first of all, you need to actually coach yourself, become your own mentor and start asking, why am I, like if you're starting as a BA, why do you want to start? Or if you're already a BA, where do you want to grow? Because as I said, our profession is very, very kind of, flexible. You can create your own path if you wish to. So try what is that really ticks you, what is that really, appeals you. We have a lot of skills, T-shaped, we call it as. So you can go as wide or as deep as you want in any subject. So first of all, identify or be your own coach by asking those questions. Once you have your niche, apply, have that clarity. What is it I want to learn? And then you can, as you heard, there are so many forums here, then probably you will find the right person to get into the actual mentorship. But before that, do the preparation of having that clarity for yourself.
Yeah. When I've coached people in the past, I have said the work that we do as business analysis professionals is half just like getting the work done, but the other half is your own style. It's what you bring to it. So, all right. Well, let's move on to our next question. We've got about 20 minutes, so we're doing pretty good. So this question is for you, Deirdre. What strategies can women use to build confidence, to advocate for themselves, and to drive meaningful change in their organizations and industry?
Right. So, as I mentioned previously, I'm a very practical person. Um, and so, the first thing I would say is that understanding that it's all made up. So, you've got this professional landscape, and really, if you look at games like gamification, for instance, and if any of you have kids or husbands or wives or whoever plays games, you'll realize that a lot of it is constructed in a certain way. And so people go into the game and they play the game and they look to navigate the different spaces. And somebody came up to me about 10 years ago and he said to me, Deirdre, it's all made up. And it took me quite a long time to actually figure out what he meant by this. But really, it's about crafting your own space. So, just as you would do in gamification, you craft your space where you want to be. So, when I started my business, I said, this is what I want to do. And this is how you get to the place that you are today. The other thing that I really want to talk to business analysts about, and I know that this is something that they might not really want to hear, especially with women. I have struggled with a lot of women being quite technologically averse. And the challenge with that is that we are going to be real leaders in digital change. And digital change means that you've got AI, you've got lots of things happening. And this means that you have to get over that aversion and you have to say, I'm going to embrace technology and I'm going to do the things that we need to do in order to really contribute to what this new world is going to look like in terms of AI. And so it's going to be uncomfortable, like we spoke about, whether you're an introvert or whether you're adverse to technology. And it's really unfortunate because when I do training, I have 50-50% male and female if I teach architecture or analyst. But if I do any technical training, I get maybe 1 or 2 women that join. And so that is still very much a reality. And so practically, I would say you need to work on some of these hard skills. Women are really good at soft skills, really good at being able to communicate more effectively, being able to read a room. Women are good at these things. So now just some hard skills. When I say hard, not as in hard as in soft versus hard skills. What I will say is that you have to put in the time and the efforts to upskill yourself in those particular areas. And these are the strategies that you should be focusing on. And then we have obviously spoken about looking at mentorships and looking at the different ways in which you can get help to do this, because you're going to not get it right the first time. You're going to have to try a few times. And I know what happens. You get imposter syndrome and you go, you see, I can't do this, la la la. So you have to change that mindset. And so my advice to women is redefine the game. Redefine the game that you're in, that you're playing, and make it work for you. And if you want to start with something, play some chess. That's something we do at our home, and it really does help make you think about how you're going to redefine your game. So that's my view.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Tech companies need us. They need
Yep.
women. Um, when you've got a bunch of men who are of the same kind of personality set, same skill set, you get a lot of the same decisions made over and over again. Women and other communities being at the table change the decision-making patterns in companies.
Yeah.
Studies show that. So, um, who wants to add to this?
I'd be happy to add.
Yeah.
I'll give some quick things that I find useful. The first one is to create a wins folder. So anytime you get positive feedback or you hear something good from someone about yourself, make a log of it. Create a folder. It could be a paper-based file or it could be a digital folder, and save those things. Person X, applauded me for this on this date. And when you're down, open it up and read it again. It doesn't necessarily
Mm.
have to be a list of all the things you did well or all the compliments you received, but even something that you felt that you were proud of. It could be, oh, I cooked a meal today, even though I was so tired. And just having those pick me up moments for yourself, I think, is a great way to advocate and to get confidence. Another approach that I find useful is to first of all know when to advocate for yourself. So, is the timing right? Is my organization going through a layoff? Definitely not a good time. Is there an open position? Probably a good time. Is there a change happening in my team? Probably a good time. And how do you do that? Well, first of all, you go to the person you think would be open to listening. If you know that you're not getting along with someone, like Deirdre said, read the room, but go to them with the story. And the story has to be in a STAR approach. What was the situation? What is the task? What was my approach? And what was the result? So then go to them with that STAR approach, and that gives them concrete examples of what you have accomplished and what you haven't, with some numbers if they're possible. Was this the first time this was done in this specific context? Was it a numerical statistic that I can provide? By having those facts in front of people and those stories, you're able to advocate for yourself a little bit more concretely and with evidence, and that helps build your credibility as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking very similar stuff, and I love that folder idea, Priyanka. But I jotted down a few notes about, finding ways to balance vulnerability and telling your story to the same people.
Mm.
So others will tell your story, others will advocate on your behalf, but it's that balance of building that relationship with them and making sure that you're also asking them for the counter feedback as well. And that balance of hey, I want some critical feedback, and here's my journey, and I'm gonna stick with you on this journey and get your feedback on how I'm doing with this. And then when you have that constructive feedback path with them, they can help you tell the story of your own growth to others as well, especially when it comes to promotion time and they're the ones in the room where it happens, really advocating for you.
Yeah, having that person to mirror back what you're doing, because Priyanka, your wins folder in chat, there people are calling it different things. Some called it a brag bank, some called it a kudos folder, right? Sometimes we don't remember the things that we did were great. So keeping
That's right.
track of that, having
Yeah, and
somebody to mirror that back to you can be really important way to validate that you are doing good stuff.
Mm.
yeah, I mean, to Angela's point as well, if you have a wins folder, have a lose folder and keep that for yourself, right? But absolutely, because there's both sides to the coin, but the win folder is when you're down and when you're not feeling confident. But there's no
Yeah.
end to learning, of course, so there's always ways to find more feedback from
Mm.
people, further to Angela's point.
And
Yeah,
ask for it too, not just what we
Yeah,
receive unasked, but ask for it.
that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
I think that's it. And if it feels weird, right? If you are the person on the receiving end of the question, I would like some feedback. A way that you can spin that, if you would like it, is I'd love some advice. Because people, when you phrase it that way, suddenly want to give you lots of it. So just kind of shift that question a little bit, and I guarantee you'll get some nuggets in there.
Can I just
All,
add another point for that,
yeah,
Susan? Because I think all of these things, I love these ideas, but they are all means to the end. That is, confidence is something an internal work. So how much ever outside people tell you, unless and until you believe that, whether it is through any of these tools,
that's right.
it has to come from within. And it is you, first of all, have to believe it. So that's something we all have to be very, very mindful that having, and that confidence comes when you have a true relationship with yourself. What I mean is you need to know who you are and why you are there on a particular task or a project. Then having those conversations, or you don't have to ask where, it just comes because you're present there. So for me, confidence, since Deirdre started off being very practical, yes, I journal That's again another
Oh,
tool where you actually will start getting to know yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses, because we know we are all work in progress. So it's just that embracing that journey, enjoying that journey has given me a lot of confidence, because I had to first of all accept who I am, because the society tells us you're not enough, we need another certification, we need another skill, we need another award, whatever it is. But no, all of that had to stop. So it only comes when we accept who we are at any given point. I think that's the starting point of confidence. That's been my experience.
yeah, that is an excellent point. So we've got about 10 minutes left. Um, let's let's do a couple of I call it the lightning round. So I'm gonna ask you guys some questions, and we'll just have short little answers to these, as short as we can make it. So, first one on the list, and I bet you there's a lot of folks that are listening in today that will be really interested in this first one. So, what is the best advice that you would give women to thrive in business analysis? Or you can also kind of turn that on its head, and what's the best advice that you've been given about business analysis, or it could be really just anything. I am going to start with Deirdre.
Oh, wow. I
Were
would
you
say,
ready for that? Wait, were you?
no,
Oh, I think
I
I'm supposed to
wasn't.
start with Priyanka first. Okay,
Okay, there you go.
Priyanka. All right, you go first.
Sure. So the best advice I would give is to perform business analysis on yourself. What are your value system? Who are your stakeholders? What problems do you want to solve for yourself? What problems do you have that you need to work on? What solutions or potential solutions are on the cards for yourself to solve those problems? What problems or solutions do you want to provide others that are around you? And how do you want to change things in yourself, in others, and in the community? So just doing that introspection and thinking about use cases when it comes to your career. This is my best case scenario. This is my alternate case. This is my exception flow. These are the three alternatives I have for my next career move, move after that. And understanding, what are my priorities? What's must have? What's could have? Just having that full understanding. And so doing business analysis for yourself is going to be a key role and I think means for you to get to where you want to be in your career. It's a very significant and it's a very well-established practice, business analysis. And I'm not saying this because I'm on an IIBA webinar, but I frankly truly believe that. So use business analysis to your advantage and reach out to me if you have any questions about any courses I take. I'm
Yeah.
joking.
All right, now, Deirdre, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay. Well, I think that that is great advice. Use the tools that you've been using to help yourself. I think that's awesome. I also think that you need to have courage, like Bindi said earlier, but I think you need to be bold. I really want to get this bold thing out there because a lot of women think of what they cannot do. But I think, yeah, having some boldness would be good.
All right, so being bold. Angela.
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm thinking about keeping your BA lens on and honoring it. So you have a unique role in the team as a BA, and too often everyone else on the team asks us for things from their perspective, and we try to answer it from that other perspective. Whereas I want to say, honor that you have a unique role in the team, a unique lens, honor the intent of what they're asking for, but keep your BA lens on. Classic
Mhm.
example, someone asks you a technical question, they're from the technical team. You don't need to answer it technically, even though they ask it technically. What's the
Mm.
intent they're asking for? Answer it as a BA, not that you're supposed to be someone else you're not.
Ooh, excellent. Bindu.
I think one of the very first advice that I got when I started my career was, because as I said, coming from a technical background, I was into coding, and they said, irrespective of whatever the work you do, you are in people's business. And that really was very profound. Of course, it didn't make much sense then, but yes, it is no matter what we do, even if there's a product, end of the day, we are changing somebody's life or we are impacting people. And that was such a profound advice because I started learning more about people and today I say there are no difficult stakeholders. There are only different stakeholders. People are different. That is all it is. So that gave me a really, really good foundation to connect people at that human level. And that is something which I even tell my children, no matter what,
Yeah.
you're in people's
We're
business.
in the people business. I think
That's
I
it.
came to that realization later in my career. I'll give you the best advice I ever got really quickly. I had just gotten laid off from my first business analysis job, and I was boohooing to my dad, and he said, "Susan, you're miserable only as long as you want to be." And I thought, "Whew, I can come back from this."
Mm.
And that changed how I thought about the situation. So something as simple as your perspective, your mindset is what can make the difference was really powerful for me. All right. So next question, I'm going to start with you, Bindu. Who's a female leader that inspires you and why?
That's a very classic question. But I think I beg to differ because for me personally, inspiration isn't tied to a single name. And I say, Susan, this with deep respect to all the many incredible women who have influenced me, and I can see their faces right in front of me here. But I believe that inspiration is very personal, situational, and it is ever evolving. Somebody who has inspired me 10 years back is the reason why I'm here today. That doesn't mean today somebody is my inspiration, is no less. And especially today, in this day and age, we all wear multiple hats, professionally and personally. If you look at our titles, we have various titles. So, which means we will be taking that inspiration from all of those different women in different contexts. My father used to say, life is the biggest university if you choose to learn. And I kind of started to understand it later on in life over a period of time. And now it's become my second nature, where I recognize strengths with people, whomever I'm talking to, and draw inspiration from them. It could be colleagues, it could be influencers or super achievers, or even someone who is very quietly making a difference. So one specific trait, yes, that really, really stands out for me and it gets my attention is those women who don't let barriers stop them. It could be situational, mental, physical, whatever those barriers are, they go beyond that and carve a path for themselves. And I think that's the most admirable quality that I see. And we can find women across the time with that trait. And that's what really inspires me.
Yeah. All right. We've got just about 3 minutes left. Angela, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Lately, I'm going to say Mel Robbins. Just
Hmm.
mic drop on that, right? Like, just
Okay.
gonna go there.
All right. Do you want to tell folks who that is?
Oh, okay. So yeah, doesn't everyone know? No. I mean, she's like #1 podcaster in the world, I think, right now.
Yeah.
And just really admire how she leads the conversations she leads on her podcasts and how she does it with integrity and transparency and empathy and compassion, assertiveness, all of it. That's
All
just
right. So we've got some required listening. Check. Deirdre, how about you?
Um, I'm very much the same with Bindu. I mean, I look at women over time and that matters. But if I had to pick somebody, it would probably be J.K. Rowling. I think just her whole story, going from nothing, being a mom, doing all the things that women face, and really stepping out of that, and even still being an advocate for women, and being a very strong advocate for women. So I would say her.
All right. Priyanka, I'm going to let you wrap us up with your.
Sure, I'll keep it short. My leader, my female leader that I watch and follow quite a bit is Indra Nooyi. She is a former top head of PepsiCo. And what I like about her is that she's very real in her conversations. She's less bookish and theory. She's more about these are the challenges I had going back home. I was a leader or CEO at PepsiCo, but when I went home, I was just a mom. I still had the dishes. Like she gives a real authentic view of the challenges that women face. She talks about parenting. She talks about overcoming guilt, even though you've not done something wrong. If when you're at work, you're ignoring your children. When you're at home, you're ignoring your work. So I find her quite real, and I'm able to relate to her in many fronts. Also, the cultural aspect comes in. I think I'm a huge supporter of multiculturalism. So I like that she brings that forth. And so she's a leader I would say that I look up to.
Fantastic. All right. We're at the end of our time together today, and I just want to tell you all how thankful I am that you've taken some time out of your day, our panelists, to come join us for a really fantastic conversation. I don't know if you guys have been watching the chat, but really, there's lots of appreciation and other thoughts as people have been answering these questions along with us. Also, for you guys that are attending today, I want to thank you for taking time out. We are celebrating International Women's Day. Yep, it was on Saturday, but this is when we could get everybody together. So you know how it is. We're busy ladies. So I want to thank all of you again. You will get a link to the recording in 24 hours after this. Angela, Deirdre, Bindu, Priyanka, thanks to all of you. And I'm sure I'm going to see you again. That's right, big hearts. Look, here they come, big hearts. All right, you guys, take care, and we will see you soon. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Susan. Thank
Yeah.
you. You're
Thank
awesome.
Thank you
Thank you,
all for
everyone.
joining. Thank you, Susan, and all the other ladies. It was a lovely
Yeah.
conversation.
And gentlemen, thanks for hanging in there with us too. We
Yes, I
really
see
appreciate
there's
that.
quite a lot of comments from
I
the
know,
guys
quite
as
a bit,
well.
right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good to hang with you guys. Good to see you all.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye.